You're listening to the ReThink Health podcast, hosted by Dr. Marius Geanta and powered by the Center for Innovation in Medicine, a European research and innovation organization. Through this podcast and the ideas expressed by our guests, we want to build forward better and to set the stage for the European Health Union, one in which the Eastern voice is also heard.
So welcome everybody to ReThink Health platform. It's my pleasure to have with us today Dan Stanner, who is the Vice President and Head of Europe at Moderna. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today, Dan.
It's a pleasure, Marius. Really a pleasure being here today with you and with the audience.
We are pleased to have you because we have a lot of things to discuss for the Eastern Europe and the Romanian audience of this podcast. It's relevant, your work at Moderna, but as well it's relevant that you actually are born in Bucharest. You left at 12 years old, right? Romania. Then you had an international career in pharma industry, and you joined Moderna, I think at the right time, right before the pandemic to start.
No, absolutely, Marius. So yeah, indeed, it's a pleasure to talk to you today, and obviously it's close to my heart. Romania. I was born in Romania. I was raised the first 12 years, actually, 10 or 12, 11 years. I think I stayed in Bucharest. I did my first study, so I've been a couple of times back to Romania. I was trying to see how much Bucharest has changed. It was just unbelievable, but happy to see that I've been able to recognize my school, my elementary school, and I've been able to go and to visit some of those places, and you see so many souvenirs which are coming back. Indeed, a fabulous adventure, 30 years in the industry, but the last 2 years was Moderna. I had the opportunity to join Moderna just before the dream became reality. When I joined in Europe, we were just 2 employees across all Europe, both based in Switzerland. One of my colleagues was the head of manufacturing and my head of commercial. And when we wanted to talk something, when we wanted to exchange ideas, to brainstorm, it was just the 2 of us. We have now a couple of hundred people. We have offices in UK, in France, in Germany, in Spain, opening now in Italy, and obviously more than 200 people in Switzerland, and probably also more than 100 people as we speak in Poland. So the world, the Moderna life, the Moderna reality really became from a company which was based on a 10-year dream of our CEO, who believed to build a new mechanism of action, a new set of pharmaceuticals after the small molecule revolution, the biologics revolution. He believes that the mRNA would be the third revolution. And I think his dream became reality at the end of 2020, when we got the FDA approval, and at the beginning of 2021 in January, where the European Medical Agency gave us the approval in Europe, and we start bringing our vaccine.
So let's come back at the beginning of 2020. You just joined Moderna. A lot of noise around the new virus coming from China, with more and more cases in Europe and in US. And I think your CEO already told you, right, at the beginning, that you might have a solution for that. Messenger RNA, right?
No, absolutely. I think he was very bold. I remember, and I think you can find it on YouTube, when our CEO went at the press conference with President Trump, and suddenly he raised a hand when he was asking who has something to offer. And he raised a hand and he said, well, I think I will be able to deliver a vaccine. And then you see the eyes of President Trump, who is looking towards his head of the FDA at that moment, and he say, who is this guy? And then they took it seriously, and I think we delivered. I think Moderna and our CEO, Stéphane Bancel, was able to deliver exactly what he said at that moment. We've been able to deliver. We've been able to launch on time, in December 2020, the first batch. And I remember at that moment how much we have celebrated across Europe. I remember our team going and being able to wait for the first trucks, the first planes to leave. So we're all in front of the truck, in front on the airport. It was all surrounded by army, by military. When the trucks were coming with vaccines, it was like it would have contained gold. It was the military of the various countries, the people from the special forces and security. It was really like gold. It was one of these experiences that you live once in a lifetime, considering what has hit later, the pandemic. If you remember the images from Italy, from the north of Italy, it was absolutely a once in a lifetime experience to go through those moments. I think we're so excited and boosted by the vision of our CEO and our company that we will make it. that, and despite we didn't even have phase one at that moment, but I think the energy was too big, the excitement and the vision to what we're trying to achieve was too big, and everybody was working day and night. I think for months we didn't have a weekend, but once again, it's so nice to look backwards when at that moment, and we've been able to make it, and we delivered 2021. Our company, we started from zero. We deliver more than 840, I think over 840 million doses of vaccine. So imagine that is United States entire population plus Europe entire population, plus probably we can add UK to that.
Yes, I remember the day of the debate at FDA. I think we had a 12 hours coverage on our online platform with all the scientific discussion of your studies, of your phase 3 studies. And I remember that we wait until 2 in the morning actually for the decision. So it was as well for us and for the scientific community we involved in this communication a very important and somehow unexpected moment, because I personally didn't expect the vaccine to be done actually in 9 months from zero to the approval in EU and as well in United States and United Kingdom. But what is the secret? Because of course we have the messenger RNA technique that is already very well known, but as well we have the genomic sequencing of the virus, who help us a lot at the beginning to fast understand the biology of the virus. So I think it's the convergence of the genomics and messenger RNA. But what else?
I think what else, it's two things for me, two learnings. First of all, before joining Moderna, I was in big pharma. So first of all, I think it was a lesson of humility that innovation has no limits. It's not as big as you are, it's sometimes as smart as you are. So I'm not saying that we're smarter than big pharma, but I'm saying if you look at this time, those who have been able to bring vaccines, most of them are small companies. A small BioNTech, as one example, even if they get married afterwards with Pfizer on this journey, but BioNTech, which was at the original, is a small German company. Moderna, a small US West Coast company, East Coast company. Novavax, which is just bringing a vaccine now, a small company. The big pharma have not been able, other than AstraZeneca, which brought their vaccine, to deliver the innovation on this first round when the pandemic first hit. So that's one first learning. The second learning for me is that, it's this resilience. It's you believe in a vision. You believe that we are not going to change the nucleus. We're not going to change the genes. It's going to work. It is possible. We've worked on the lipid profile. We've worked on the improving the sequencing. We've worked on the storage form to ensure that we optimize and that we don't have a product which has to be stored at minus 100 degrees, but we're making a product which is stable at minus 20, and we're making a product which is stable at the fridge temperature. So all these are the results of the resilience, surrounded and led by one vision, which was the last 10 years from our CEO. So I think that it's showing that it can pay off. It's showing that by pursuing a dream, it pays off. And by surrounding yourself with the right mindset and letting the science lead all your decisions, it's actually working.
Indeed, the mRNA vaccines and your work at Moderna, it's a clear game changer, I think, at least for the vaccines, but I think for the pharma industry. The way you act very fast, a lot of investments, a lot of human resources in a very short period of time, the engagement with the regulatory authorities, this was something new as well in Europe and in United States. It's a game changer. How do you see actually the future? Because you mentioned the let's say traditional pharma, you on the other side are the small biotech like Moderna, which is not so small anymore, but anyway, it's different than the big pharma. How do you see the immediate future, knowing that you have already a consistent pipeline for COVID-19 vaccines, second generation, but also for other?
No, and I will take your question, but I just realized, Marius, that I haven't covered enough your first question on the speed of developing, because we're going to talk maybe later about why some countries are at 50% immunization rate and some like Italy or Spain are close to 90%. And I think one thing which is very important to notice that the technology have allowed us to go fast. You can sequence the virus extremely fast. You can go from the sequence of the virus to initiating a clinical trial in 2 months. But we went through absolutely all the steps. We went through a phase 1, went through a phase 2, went through a phase 3. What has happened, because, and that's important for the people who are listening, to give them confidence that we have not burned any step. We have not made any shortcut. Usually what it happened in clinical research in normal pharmaceutical environment is that you do not do simultaneously a phase 1 and a phase 2. You do not start a phase 3 before having the results of a phase 2. Because have the oral hearing of the FDA or the EMEA or the regulatory agencies, and each time have 2-3 months to interact, to exchange exact questions. Here, because of the emergency, we were allowed to do things in parallel, and we had the funding to do the things in parallel, which normally you don't do. But the pressure, the importance of the mission, and the importance to bring a vaccine was too big that we have taken this risk to build the plan at the same time as we're building the clinical plan. You would normally never do that. And to build a plant will take you 2-3 years. But to have been moving the phase 1, we started the phase 2. At the same time, we started the phase 3. And we went through sharing all our phase 1 data, remember, with the FDA, with EMEA. Then we shared our phase 2. Then we share our phase 3. We've got all the hearings, all the exchange. So there has been absolutely no shortcut. The other thing which made that possible have been the engagement of the regulators. And I know because I was involved in some of those conversations 2 years back. And that was absolutely unbelievable in US or in Europe. We've almost had a personal line. Each company have a personal dedicated team, which were only working with us. So what used to take maybe, let's give them 2 months or 3 months, it was taking 1 week or 2 weeks because of fully dedicated people only to Moderna, only to COVID, to ensure that they could go through all the data in weeks instead of in months. That has been absolutely an amazing collaboration, an amazing effort from the regulators, which put hand in hand with the investment at risk and the parallel processing of some of those studies have made all this acceleration. But at never point in time has been any shortcut. So just to encourage people to understand that it was not an approval, you'd say, discounted. It was an approval with the same rigor and the same review process, but just with different resources, being on the regulatory side and being on our side as well. Now, to coming back about the future, I think the future is now. And we've just announced yesterday that our bivalent vaccine with 25 micrograms of the original ancestral strain from Wuhan and 25 micrograms of the Omicron variant has just met all the primary endpoints in the recent phase 2-3 trial, including neutralizing antibody response against Omicron. This is fantastic because those results are at 29 days. At 29 days, we were afraid because we know that the benchmark is our current vaccine, which is a quite potent vaccine. It's actually probably one of the most potent as we speak. So to be able to show superiority at already 29 days against a vaccine, which at 29 days is normally pretty powerful, was a stretch. But we're extremely happy. And we always have to be mindful and to have to be humble in front of the clinical studies and the science. But we're extremely pleased yesterday or 2 days back when we have seen the data and we've seen that we've met all primary endpoint. And the new bivalent vaccine of Moderna, the next generation, have proven and demonstrated superiority against the previous vaccine on all tested variants of concern, of course, including Omicron.
So we are waiting for this fall actually to have the approval.
Absolutely.
Right?
We are in the process of working with the regulators, and for Romania, it's obviously the European Medical Agency as we speak. It's happening, as we speak. And my best guess, my best estimation is that sometimes late summer, this vaccine should gain approval. Again, it's just my estimation, but we're working extremely closely with all regulatory agencies around the globe to submit all this data, to answer all their questions, and to try to be ready and approved by September. Because most of the vaccination immunization programs, people are not going to do them now. Even if we have forced those programs in UK, in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Spain, all different, which is happening as we speak. But most governments are, and the public health agencies are speeding up and preparing to get the next vaccination campaign early fall, which is when people are afraid or believe that the variant can come back with, a new evolution, a new mutation of the current variant of concern.
Indeed, it's the expectation of the authorities and some citizens and people for new generation, 2.0, let's say, of
Exactly.
your vaccines. One additional question on this regard, because you mentioned that you test the new vaccine, let's say, a Moderna vaccine against the variant that we know. But what is your approach in relation with potential new, let's say, mutation or other variants of the virus? Because we expect to have, I think, in the years to come, other variants of the virus. What is your approach? How do you follow this evolution of the virus?
Well, first of all, we are working in very close collaboration with all the public health agencies, around the globe. So as soon as there is a variant which could become a variant of concern, we see, a spread, or we see becoming predominant, we're always in contact with them, and they share with us and with the other manufacturers to ensure that we can stay ahead of the curve. Today, the bivalent, or the current bivalent vaccine, have shown superiority against most of the. We tested it against most of the variants of concern that we have experienced and that are currently in the circulation, and we're extremely happy to have demonstrated superiority. Now, when you move towards a bivalent component, you'd like to ensure that your level of neutralizing antibodies are higher than with a monovalent, and that we've been able to prove. But you also expect that because you are tackling two strains of the mRNA, the quality and the duration of your antibody is going to be longer, because ultimately the objective is to cover as many variants of concerns, past ones, existing ones, and hopefully future ones, but also to ensure that the waning of the immunity, because we know the waning is going down, and the older you are, the faster the waning, that we are able to keep it, and to ensure that with this type of next generation vaccine that I hope to bring to the markets as of September, we don't need anymore a booster every 4 or 5 months, but we can hopefully use a booster once a year. That's the objective.
That sounds very good for many people who start asking, should I vaccinate every 3 months or every 4 months or every 5 months? It's a very good message, I think. On the other side, I think with the messenger RNA, we are slightly moving to the precision vaccinology, to the prediction vaccinology. And because this technology allow you to move very, very fast, faster than any technology used to produce a vaccine before. What do you think about the
I
future
agree
of
with you.
vaccinology?
No, I agree with you. So now we have the 2.0, the next generation, which we just announced data yesterday, the bivalent. We clearly understood, we have already had a bivalent vaccine that we developed, which was a bivalent between beta and your ancestral strain. And we have looked at data, and interestingly, it was superior versus the existing vaccine on most, if not all, parameters. And most important, we have seen a superiority at 1 month, like now we have at 3 months and at 6 months, which means that the durability of effect, you'll see that the neutralizing level of antibodies is 2 to 2.5 times better and higher, which means a much longer protection. Then what we realized, that was matching a beta strain, the second strain. But we said, what if we're going to match the antigen? And we know that when you match the antigen in the vaccine, you expect clearly longer lasting antibodies. And that's what we put here. And that's what has been paying off, from day one. Now, what you see is that it took us about, or starting at the beginning, it was about 3 months to go from the sequence to the starting the trial. Now, this time we've made it in 2 months. And then you need a certain number of months to recruit your study, your phase 2, 3 study, until you get. Is there going to be a moment where the regulators in the future could go like what we are facing in the seasonal flu, that they know enough about the safety of the vaccine? We have not millions, billions of people who have been exposed on years. So years of people experience it's high exposure, So that there is no safety concern. So it could come a moment, which obviously depends on regulators, where they could only ask us, like for the seasonal flu, they know enough the platform, the technology, and just changing the antigen, matching to the latest one, which then probably, if that's going to come one day, it could be even significantly shorter. Instead of be 8 to 9 months, it could be 2 to 3 months at that moment. But that's, again, today, this moment in time, it's in the hand of the regulators. But what I would like to say is that for sure, Moderna could adapt to such a speed if it's coming from regulators, and we could deliver on even a bigger speed for the future.
Yes, and for the flu, I think it's crucial to cut the time and to have more real time information regarding the antigens in order to
You
adapt
can wait
yeah.
much longer. You don't
Yes.
need to do so. You can wait until the last moment, or almost 3 months before you can get your study done, and you can ensure that you use the matching of the strain in Vega. I fully agree with you, and that brings me to the vision. So we move now from version 1.0 to version 2.0 by Valent, which will bring to market. Next year, we're going to bring probably a next generation vaccine, which we're going to work, with a smaller strain, which will provide better storage capacity, lower temperature, longer in the fridge, or maybe even at a regular temperature, with higher efficacy and more predictability and coverage against the variants of concern. But probably within 18 to 24 months, the vision is to provide one jab per year, normally around September, October, November, which will not only protect you against the latest variant of concern, but which will also protect you against the latest flu. So one jab tackling two diseases for the patients at risk. And probably 1 year later, we're planning to keep on adding respiratory pathogens to it. So flu, seasonal flu, COVID, and then the next one we'll add where we started a phase 3 is RSV.
Yeah.
So then you start adding for the adults 1 shot, 2, 3, 4 pathogens that you could cover for the patients at risk. Just one flu, 1 shot in autumn, and provide protection to these people at risk against multiple pathogens. That's the vision. That's the direction towards which we're going.
This is the reason why I said that it's a real game changer what you did with Moderna and with the mRNA platform. So we have real-time vaccinology, you follow the virus, you work with the agency, you have a tremendous platform. You can put there antigens from COVID, from, you mentioned the flu and other viruses. But at the end of the day, is the citizen who should be convinced to take the vaccination. And I would like to hear your thoughts, about this divide, at least in Europe, with countries in Eastern Europe that has a vaccination rate around 50%, 40+%, and the Eastern with up to 80%, 90%.
I think it's, Marius, I'm as surprised as you. I have difficulty to explain why we end up in Spain or in Italy at close to 90% vaccination rate, or in UK, and why we end up in some other European countries at vaccination rate 45, 50, 55%. I have difficulties to understand. One reason you could think, well, they don't get the same vaccine, but no, all the orders were done through the European Commission. So the access is exactly the same vaccine. Whatever they get BioNTech, whatever they get Moderna, whatever they get AstraZeneca, it's the same. So there's no difference on the product that they receive. The same quantities were shipped. Now, I was talking to members of my family. I still have a few members in Romania, and I was trying to convince them. I didn't manage. For me, it's my job. Obviously, I'm not here to talk to people to get vaccinated, but that's my family. So I was trying to convince them as a close family. I didn't manage that. Oh, but my doctor is telling me so. It's difficult for me to explain why, but for sure there is a difference. And I think it all depends about the way the wage government approach, the wage government push. I'm convinced that all governments are pushing. I cannot imagine, but it's something which remains for me a mystery. To try to explain why do we have, when you go to 90% or 45%, it's 1 out of 2, it's double. How to explain, how can we explain that? We're having as many people which at the education level is the same. We actually have even more people which are following university with university education. The vaccines are the same. How can we end up in vaccination rates so different? Difficult to explain. I have no explanation.
Indeed, it's difficult, and it's somehow our task living here to try to understand better. This is the reason we put together this Eastern Europe task force to somehow rethink the vaccination, starting from the COVID-19 lessons. But if you are looking to the HPV vaccination, it's another example. We can see quite the same differences between our region and the others in Europe. And yes, this is a topic of very high interest for the Center for Innovation in Medicine and our platform in the years to come, because we had this reality of pandemic, real-world evidence, real-world data. We should be able to capture all these data and to have the right learnings in order to inform the future vaccination campaigns in the region. But this is something we for sure will have the chance to discuss in the years to come. And for the end of our discussion, I will ask you, because you mentioned already the flu and this approach to put together the antigens from 3 to 4 viruses and to have one jab per year, same platform. That's fabulous. But I have seen some data on cancer. Maybe you can share a bit on these. Maybe other diseases might benefit from this technology.
No, for sure. No, Marius, for sure. You know that we have more than I stopped following because every day is one or two more, so almost every week. So last time I looked, it was more than 40 programs at different stage of clinical development. We have, I think, today already 4 products in phase 3, 4, which phase 3 is the last before approval, and more than 40 programs in development. What I could say is that we are starting, obviously we have a large number of projects in cardiovascular, where we're working a number of them with AstraZeneca, which is an expert in the biology understanding. We're having a large number of programs which are running in rare disease. We see that that's another place where when the speed of development is so fast, and knowing that you have such a small population pool, that's something that with the mRNA technique, you can tackle and you can attack easily. You don't need the manufacturing plant. It's the same plant as what does COVID-19. So the speed and the industrial equipment provides you synergies to go and tackle disease that otherwise you wouldn't be allowed. You also know that we are tackling cancer. So we're having a large number of cancers, multiple pathways, 2 pathways that we're tackling in cancer. And last but not least, what I will talk is about the latent viruses like Epstein-Barr. You probably have read in the last couple of weeks, I think 2 months ago, it was Lancet or New England, where there have been some very interesting publications that possibly Epstein-Barr could be behind multiple sclerosis. Yeah. Well, we believe that we have a way to tackle, some of those latent viruses such as CMV, number 1 base defect cause, or such as Epstein-Barr. We have also announced, as you have seen on HIV, that we are pursuing with some of the leading center of excellence when it comes to HIV, which understand the biology of such a complex virus, which mutates so fast. And last but not least, probably you read a few weeks back when we have announced our public health strategy from Moderna standpoint, and you've seen that by 2025, Moderna took a commitment to cover and to engage and to bring support of 15 of the top most dangerous pathogens that CEPI and WHO have announced. So you see the universe of opportunities are just gigantic. We just don't have enough people. We just don't have enough ability to focus, but already tackling more than 40 of them in some of the diseases that we are talking with 4 already, which are in phase 3. So yeah, the future looks very promising looking ahead.
Yes, the future on one way is already here. Yes. On the other hand, we are waiting for the next months and years for these studies to be completed, to have very good data, hopefully, and new approvals, because there are real unmet needs on all the areas you mentioned. So at the end of our conversation, I would like to ask you, maybe you have a message for the Romanian audience. You can send a message in Romanian if you prefer. It's up to you.
No, it's Romania. It's a country close to my heart. I used to speak, Romanian at home, for years, and I keep on trying. My mom and my dad passed away, but that was still the last day we're talking Romanian, and that's something which is very close to my heart. I hope to come back to Romania in the near future to come and to visit. I'm trying to work closely with the Romanian government, the Ministry of Health, and to try to support and, to support for the fall campaign, to allow the Romanian people to receive the next generation vaccine and to allow to bring this version 2.0, like you said, for the Romanian people, to give them the best of the best, which hopefully will be approved by that time. And last but not least, it has been a pleasure being here today and talking to, a Romanian media and platform with you. So real pleasure, and mulțumesc mult și o seară sau o zi plăcută.
Thank you so much, Dan Stanner, Vice President of Moderna and Head of Europe at Moderna. Very, very much pleasure to have you with us, and we are very close. We will follow very close your activities, your announcements, your new products, and thank you so much for all your work already done.
Mulțumesc, Marius.
You listen to the ReThink Health podcast, hosted by Dr. Marius Geanta and powered by the Center for Innovation in Medicine, a European research and innovation organization with interest in visionary health policies and civil society education. Through this podcast and the ideas expressed by our guests, we want to build forward better and to set the stage for the European Health Union, one in which the Eastern voice is also heard. The war in Ukraine, overlapping with the health crisis caused by the pandemic, changed our lives overnight, once again. We are all rediscovering the fear and the uncertainties of just 2 years ago, from the first days of the pandemic. We have a health crisis, but it is completely different from the pandemic health crisis. Naturally, not only health, but individual safety, from all points of view, has become and is now our main concern. At the Center for Innovation in Medicine, we are aware not only that we have not returned to pre-pandemic normalcy, but that we have entered the new post-pandemic normalcy. We are experiencing a new reality. Science and innovation do not stop because the war has begun. And nor will we.